Welcome back to Top Bins, the show breaking down all the action from the Premier League and Serie A. I'm your host, Matt, joined by my co-host, Dom. Dom, how are you tonight?
I'm doing all right. A little annoyed at a couple things going on, but overall feeling good.
Dom, your team Milan is at top of the Serie A table. I have to imagine that that's at least one positive light in your life, making all the annoyances a little more bearable.
A little bit, yeah, a little bit.
Well, we're going to start on the bottom end of the table in Serie A for tonight's show because we had Salernitana 1, Cagliari 1 on Sunday. This is a relegation scrap that was, I think, maybe in the last few weeks has only gotten turned up with a little more intensity because Salernitana trying to pull it off what would definitely be one of the great escapes of any of the top European leagues. A late Altare goal kept Cagliari alive, literally in the league. They were going to be relegated because at the time it was 1-0, and that would have been enough to mathematically ensure that they would not be in Serie A next season. But they lived to see another day. A 99th minute goal off of a corner. This game had it all. Lots of contention, lots of nasty tackles, fouls, very few chances, of course. Salernitana get their goal through a Verdi penalty kick. But yeah, I mean, this was just this was a great game. It's everything you could have wanted out of a bottom of the table type of clash. Salernitana had a great home support for this one as well. A lot of good chance and definitely a lot of excitement. And I have to say, when the Cagliari goal went in, the absolute just silence from the crowd. I mean, I have to imagine that that's what it has to just be one of the worst feelings ever to see a goal like that scored because Salernitana would have surely been safe after this as well. It really was almost like a relegation playoff, but it goes now to the final two match days.
Yeah, I mean, we see the rare double red card is sent to one player each in the 69th minute. It doesn't help Salernitana that it was Ribéry, who is, I guess, I would assume that someone who they count on a little bit.
That was because Verdi celebrated in front of the Cagliari bench, and they all cleared, and there was a big fight, and Ribéry got involved from the bench fighting. It was actually like
gotta love it.
I'm not sure Verdi quite realized, I guess, that he was celebrating right in front of the Cagliari bench. They did not appreciate it, though, because the penalty also went to VAR, so it's a little bit contentious. I think it was a penalty. He very clearly tripped the player, but it was a scrappy game. It had it all.
I mean, this keeps Salernitana 1 goal or 1 point above Cagliari, so that's nice. They've been in decent form actually. 4 wins in their last 6. Hopefully, they live to see another day with the last 2 match weeks. So maybe they squeak by with a couple more points and they stay safe.
Yeah, I think Cagliari is a team that people tend to not like all that much. They've had some very obvious issues with fan racism in the past few seasons. I think has been a little distasteful towards people. So I don't know that there'd be a lot of people too upset necessarily if Cagliari went down. Davide Nicola, by the way, though, saved Torino last year when they were flirting with relegation. He's been the man since February at Salernitana. And I tell you, if he keeps them up, Torino didn't keep him around, and fair enough, and they've had a pretty good season off the back of it. Salernitana might want to hang on to Nicola, though, because he clearly has a way of keeping these teams afloat. He's developed a really nice reputation of being able to save these teams, and I'm looking forward to see if he can pull it off again. They've looked good, like you said, in the last few weeks. He has them playing well, and I think they were a little unlucky to not get all 3 points out of this game.
I was on a thread on Twitter that was talking about. I think it was IFTV. They were like, "Who's your Serie A manager of the season?" And, you got the Juventus trolls saying Allegri, and you have a couple people saying Inzaghi, and but a lot of people saying Pioli. But then you would see Nicola in there. People would be saying, "Yo, look at this. Took Salernitana from basically last place to being safe and coming back to Serie A next season, just about." You know what I mean? And I don't think that's that bad of a shout, right? Everybody tends to focus on the clubs that have all the success all season, right? Most notably Milan, who Pioli with a team that was basically injured half the season and has no complete right side. to have more points than they did last year, and on course to potentially win the league. But there goes a lot to say, taking a team that hasn't been in Serie A for a very, very long time and, making sure that they stay up for another season. That says a lot. And that's a great shout for potential manager of the season.
I think the only thing working against him is that he came in February. I think it's just hard to give that kind of award to someone that wasn't there the whole. But I mean, when you consider where they were when he came in and where they sit now, it's hard to make the argument for me. I think it's probably going to come down to who wins the league. I think either Inzaghi or Pioli would be deserving of manager of the year. Pioli taking the step up with Milan, should they win the title, and Inzaghi taking over after, losing Conte, losing some key players, and they've still, been challenging for a title. They could still do the domestic treble this year. They could, they have the Coppa Italia final, which we'll preview later in the show, and they're still certainly within the title race. They already won the Supercoppa. I know
put that into the universe.
Listen. I was just saying. For all the negativity about Inzaghi and about Inter, they could have a great season.
You're not manifesting, all right?
Well, let's look at the rest of the season for Salernitana and Cagliari, because those two teams are certainly involved in the relegation fight now. Salernitana have Empoli and Udinese left. Pretty easy schedule. Two teams, near the bottom half of the table. I think you'd expect Salernitana to have a chance in those games, especially with the way they've been playing lately. They can certainly get results there. Cagliari have Inter, which is obviously big, implications for both ends of the table. That's important for the title race, and that's important obviously when you consider relegation. And they have Venezia on the final day, which is probably going to be a pretty easy match, all things considered. Venezia just way out of it, of course. But that Inter game is huge, right? Because Inter, a lot has been made, and we'll talk about Milan's schedule the rest of the way, but a lot has been made about comparing their schedules. I think sometimes people forget playing the relegation teams. It can be really hard because they have a lot to play for. Cagliari are going to have a lot to play for, and they're literally playing for their lives in Serie A now. That's nothing small or nothing to blink at. I would give the edge to Salernitana. They do have the point advantage. I think they have momentum, and I think they have probably the better fixtures overall. And I'd like to see them back up. I think that'd be good. It'd be a really good story.
Yeah. Let's
move. Hellas Verona 1, Milan 3. Other end of the table here is where we're talking. Rafael Leão, just fantastic. We get some things wrong here. One thing we've gotten right all through the course of the season is that Leão is a fantastic player, and is I think finally getting the praise that he's earned and he deserves. Double figures in goals and assists this year. Just fantastic stuff. Like, he's just a great player, key man in this game. Obviously, just blowing past defenders, sets Tonali up for a brace. Very similar types of goals. Just a great player, and Milan a huge step forward now for the title.
Oh yeah, I mean, from 3 minutes in, right? The arguments for a foul in the box on the out, but not even talking about that. Like, Milan were pressing and really putting pressure on Verona the entire game from the 3rd minute on. A little unlucky to let Faraoni through and on goal, so he could get in on that cross and score. But then that kind of lit a fire underneath Milan, and like you said, Leão has just been, I don't know what it is, but it doesn't look like he runs fast. Yet somehow he'll like size up his defender, do some step overs or a little dribble move or something, touch it past the defender, and somehow he's by him, and he just does it game in and game out. And then he's being able to set up his teammates as well as set himself up for goals, which I think is huge as a winger. Now you're starting to see a lot more people talk about him on the world stage, and he's starting to get a lot more eyes on him for his performances with Milan, both because of the team's success and because of what he's been doing individually in the league. Big goals, 2 goals for Tonali as well on his 22nd birthday. So a lot of 2s out there, but you can see the emotion. You can see what it means to him. what it means for the team. And as somebody who grew up as a Milan fan, to be able to arguably, they said this in the broadcast, he could technically be Mr. Scudetto if they end up winning the league. He's kind of been one of those main cogs in the wheel that has been keeping Milan afloat at the top of the league. His performances, playing defensively, getting forward, setting his teammates up, scoring big goals. I mean, he scored a goal last week that put Milan into to win that game against Lazio. So, I mean, both of those guys have stepped up massively, as well as, Tomori, Kalulu, and the like. Florenzi's goal, incredible. Great to see him getting right back into it after coming back from injury. And I think that, Florenzi's kind of making a case that he should be the starting right back. Calabria is the right back with being dribbled past, with the second most dribbled by opponents in Europe in the top 5 leagues, only topped by your boy Trent Alexander-Arnold. But
yeah, how many right backs in Europe are pulling double figures assists every season since he was 19? Just curious. Almost like Trent's role in the team isn't to be a primary defender. It's weird. It's weird that the team that's has 3 cup fucking finals this year because of Trent Alexander-Arnold is also terrible apparently. Even though they're setting records for defending every year. It's crazy. Crazy talk. You can't win anything with Trent Alexander-Arnold. Certainly not a Champions League or a league cup. Can't do it. Can't do it.
Linda,
you gotta have Aaron Wan-Bissaka, the defender premier. That's what you gotta have.
Stop it. But anyway, I also did want to just give a little shout out to Alexis Salamakers, who has been a focus of criticism all year, and
not unfairly, I should say.
No, you're right. And I have been one to criticize him on this podcast, but he finally starts getting some more playing time after losing his right wing spot to Macias, and has not really been playing much. And then he's come back and has shown a little bit of positivity in the link up play, in his work rate. I think that Milan's missed that. I think that's very undervalued and underrated in what he brings to the team. Yes, he's not the guy that's scoring a lot of goals. He's not the guy with the biggest quality when it comes to his touches and his passing and all that kind of stuff. But, there was that one time, I think either him or whoever was on the right side with him, it was kind of like a 2-on-3, and he was surrounded by the 3 players, and he kind of did a touch on the sideline behind him and backheeled it, and then he got fouled, or whoever got the ball got fouled, and it won possession for Milan. Those little things. He's been working on his dribbling a lot, and he seems a lot more comfortable. He tends to drift inside when they have the ball, and he finds himself in the middle every now and then, where he can kind of play these 1-2 passes with people. And I think that, Milan and the fan base have to have a little more confidence in him. Obviously, he's not starting quality, but if he continues to develop at Milan, he could become a valuable depth asset to the team moving forward.
Yeah, I think that's probably fair. There was 3 players that I wrote down that I think that have been the X factor for Milan this season. And when you compare them with Inter, their main title rivals, Inter only really has a few of these players that fit this profile as well. That's Tonali, Tomori, and Rafael Leão. Mm-hmm. 3 young players that I think kind of shaped the way this Milan season were going to go. If they took steps forward as individual players, we saw Tomori in the second half of last season really look very good, and he's continued that all season defensively. And Leão, I think, we saw the flashes. It needed to have more consistency, and we've seen that over the course of this season. And Tonali, I think, similar to Leão as well. We saw flashes. It was never consistent enough. Some of that was game time, too. The midfield was rotated a little more last season. But those 3 and the fact that they've taken the leaps forward, I think, is the reason that they're in this title race as opposed to this time last year. They've grown together a lot, and I think very good. On the game itself, Milan were giving Verona hell with their overlaps. They could not track a runner to save their life, and Milan were just constantly overloading them. Milan, I think, were comfortably, even though they technically came from behind to win this game, I think they were comfortable being the better team here, and I didn't quite realize that they had such a tumultuous record away to Verona, losing titles there. I didn't quite understand. I remember the one I'd heard about the one in the 90s. I didn't realize there was another time in the 70s that they had faltered in a title push. So everyone's talked about how Atalanta, Sassuolo, and Verona now it's like killing off all the old enemies to reach the precipice yet again.
I do want to say though, there's two honorable mentions of younger players, and the reason I only use quotations is because one of them isn't considered young by his actual age, but when it comes to his position that he plays, he's technically still younger than most. That's Mike Maignan, who's 26 years old, and you see keepers play well into their 30s, so he's still a younger quote unquote keeper who is really making a name for himself as one of the top keepers in the world. But also Pierre Kalulu has stepped up massively this season, where he was on the team as a right back, third choice right back. He had to play some left back at times when Theo Hernandez was injured. When Tomori was injured, he stepped in and played over Romagnoli with Kier. When Kier got injured, he stepped in for Kier and played alongside Tomori. And now Milan, I could be misquoting the stat that I shared the other night, but on Twitter. But Milan since the start of the year is one of the best defenses in Europe right now. 16 games played with 10 clean sheets and 6 goals scored. Like that's impressive. It's actually really impressive, considering the fact that, a lot of people still kind of talk down this team and say that they're not the most quality. And then, the part of that is true. They're not going to step up against Liverpool or Manchester City and have the best chance of beating them, in a cup final. But I do think that the right pieces and the right young pieces are there, where when Maldini can kind of splash a little bit of money this summer, you pick and choose the right people, and this could be a serious team in Europe next season.
This episode of Top Bins is brought to you by Bino Board. Bino is the next big tabletop game for your man cave or she shed. You should think of this game like paper football meets foosball, and you've got Bino Board. It's incredibly fun, incredibly engaging. It's a game and lifestyle brand based in Phoenix, Arizona. Bino's goal is to provide the highest quality boards and a true brand experience. Every part of their boards have been tested time and time again for the best possible playability, so that every Flicker's experience is a positive one. So when you're buying from Bino, you're getting the good stuff only. Bring the world together with Bino and hear someone's story from the other side of the pitch. You can go to binoboard.com and use our code BINOUSP for 10% off your order, including the newly launched Team USA World Cup board and merch, because we do have the World Cup year, right? We got the World Cup to look forward to. USA will be back in it, so why don't you go and get something really nice and decorative for when you're hosting your World Cup viewing parties. That's code BINO, which is BINHOUSP, for 10% off your order at BINOboard.com. I think no matter what happens, the title is still in their control. But even if they don't, I think it'll obviously be terrible. I think it's hard to reconcile that when you're sitting so close now. But the goal for Milan this season was to get Champions League again. That's already secured. And anything else is a bonus. A title would be a huge bonus and a huge, I think, just watermark on where they've reached now too. And you talk about the core of this team. It's got some good young players. I'm looking forward to see how they kind of reinforce that. Let's look a little elsewhere. Genoa had a dramatic comeback win against Juventus. This is important because Genoa, with this, quietly kind of re-enter the relegation discussion. They're only a point behind Cagliari, 2 points behind Salernitana. It's not inconceivable that Genoa could also pull a great escape. They have Napoli and Bologna to close out their season. Keep it tuned, because that could be spectacular. That game was fantastic too, Genoa-Juventus. Both games on Friday were treated to epic comebacks and just lots of frenetic action. Speaking of comebacks on Friday, Inter were 2-0 down to Empoli. Complete the comeback. I texted Dom because I was watching the game. I wasn't sure if he was. I said, Empoli are two goals up. I don't know.
I turned it on.
And almost immediately, Dom texted me and said, "Don't worry, Inter will catch back up," and they did. Lautaro Martinez, his 19th league goal of the season. I think he faced a lot of criticism, especially after the winter break. Really wasn't scoring very much, especially not from open play. He's turned it on when he's had to. If Inter do, They have the Coppa Italia final if they happen to win the Scudetto as well. Lautero's return to form will be a huge part of that. It hasn't been discussed quite enough yet, but he's really turned it back on in the last 2 months. Especially in the league where they've needed to apply pressure and get those goals flowing again. He has stepped up massively, and I think he deserves a lot of credit for that. But yeah, I mean, it's now down to the last 2 game weeks, and it's obviously turned very exciting in Serie A. Both ends of the table now open up a little bit with some intrigue. So we keep it posted on that, and I can't wait to see where we're at next week with those games. But let's move to England, where we also had some movement in the title race, not in a way that I personally appreciated very much. But Liverpool drew 1-1 with Spurs. Listen, I cards on the table, I think I'd been pretty clear that I thought it was very much City's title to lose, and that they've frequently won, 12, 13 games in a row in the league, and it's not even an issue for them. Liverpool are always going to have to hope for them to slip up and be absolutely perfect. Anytime that you have to be completely perfect, for 3 straight months, you're just kind of asking for trouble. You're obviously going to run into a team just at some point that's going to get the better of you, and that's what happened here. Liverpool have not lost in the league, by the way. I'm scrolling back since December 28th against Leicester. If Liverpool, and so much has been made about, the title race now and Liverpool, this result. The loss against Leicester, that draw against Brighton, that draw against Brentford, those are the results that actually, took Liverpool out of the title race. It's not necessarily drawing to Spurs at home, which is a pretty decent result, all things considered, especially when you think about the fact that Spurs did the double over City, in this season. So
it's kind of like what you talked about earlier in the season about Milan, right? There were a few results here and there, draws, losses, where if they end up losing, these are the results that lose a league. So, that's a great observation by you when it comes to Liverpool.
Yeah, so it's obviously frustrating, but I think it's been very much City's titles to lose for a while now. Yeah. Liverpool have always been trying to play catch up. They had to win 15 straight games to be in contention again. It's weird how the narrative shifts sometimes, because if you would ask people about a title race 2.5 months ago, they would have said there isn't one, because City were still 11 points ahead. So it is what it is.
Do you think that Luis Diaz is signing of the season?
I think it's tough because he came in winter. I think there are other guys that might. I was actually thinking about we're at the end of the season, we're obviously going to do like a team of the season and signings of the season and manager of the season and all that. I was starting to think about who the signing of the season could be in the league. I think a lot of people will praise Luis Diaz and even Kulusevski. I think it's tough though just to give that to the winner players, but yeah, there's not a huge amount of standout players off the top of my head. That came in the summer that I think, because it was a quieter summer because of COVID still. But he's been amazing. Don't get me wrong. He's certainly Liverpool's probably, but even Konate's been fantastic. So it's hard to really say. But he's had, a very clear impact on the team and how he's played. But a guy that's had a huge impact on this team in the second half of the season as well is Heung-min Son. He's been fantastic for Spurs. He's now in the Golden Boot race as well, 20 goals on the season. First time he's reached that mark. I just love his movement. He's so good. On that goal that he scores, the movement is just so spectacular. Finds the space and just plants himself there. Knows where the ball's going to end up and where he needs to be. He gets it. That front three is really dangerous. I think Spurs, if they make good signings this summer, I don't know that they're necessarily as good as Liverpool and City, for challenging for the title. But they're firmly in that, I think, Chelsea tier. Next year, if they make some smart business in the summer, if they keep Conte, if they keep Kane, all those qualifiers included. Spurs played really well defensively. There's been Klopp was, I think, a little cynical about the way they set up. He's now come out and walked some of those comments back, which is fair enough. Klopp has been a sore loser in interviews after games sometimes, and fair enough. I don't know many people that are not sore losers, to be frank, because the stakes are so high. But yeah, Spurs blocked 14 shots this game. That's the most they have all season. They executed as well as you could ask for defensively in this game. They were throwing their body in front of everything and really disrupting Liverpool in a lot of really good ways. They won all their duels. That's it. They just they executed when they had to, and they've given top teams a lot of trouble. Like we said, they've done the double over City. Obviously, one of those was before Conte arrived, but they had a famous win 3-2 away to the Etihad under Conte, and we've seen them perform well in these big stages, and that's what would give me hope if I'm a Spurs fan going into next year, is that if you keep that manager, if you keep the core of these players and make some big signings, there's something there. And this game really highlighted it to me too. I hated the quadruple talk. It's exhausting. I hated listening to when City was in for it too, because there's a reason it hasn't been done. Because it's not only do you need to be amazing, you need to be lucky. Like Liverpool, in a sense, are lucky to be in 3 cup finals. They just are. There's some luck associated with that, and that's not to diminish Liverpool's accomplishments, and that's not to diminish what City have done in years past. But you just do need sometimes an easier draw, right? Or you need just it's just a nice bounce to go your way, something to go your way, injuries not to pop up at the worst times. It's so hard to be good every single game. And Liverpool just had I think we've forgotten Liverpool have been playing every 3 days for the last 2 months. They had a really challenging game against Villarreal to get to the Champions League final. It's a really tough opponent in Spurs that had a week to play for them, and that are a very good team, and that are challenging to be in the Champions League next year, have a lot to play for. It is what it is. The title, I think, again, has been gone for some time. It's been City's to win or lose. This game is obviously going to make it much more mathematically challenging for Liverpool to really accomplish it, but I don't know that this is the game. It's like when people talk about Liverpool 3, Crystal Palace 3 from the 13-14 season. That was not the title decider. It was Chelsea 2-0. But that is the game, I think, that gets associated so much with Liverpool's downfall that season, and it just wasn't the case. But like I said, it is what it is. When you have an FA Cup final to look forward to, a Champions League final to look forward to, it's hard to get too busted up about results like this, because these are the good days.
Yeah. While we're on the topic of Liverpool, I just want to bring up a tweet from mad long ago. I'm looking for it right now on my Twitter, but it was by an account called Italy Propoganda. Uh-oh. And so you can already kind of talk about or kind of realize what's about to be said. But so around November, the end of November, beginning of December, ESPN FC released their ESPN FC 100, and then they made a list of top wingers in the world. And Sadio Mane was number 1, and Federico Chiesa was number 2. And this account, Italy Propaganda, tweeted, Sadio Mane and Federico Chiesa have almost identical stats, except Chiesa was in the Euros team of the tournament, won the Euros. Both of those are moot when it comes to comparing the players, because Sadio Mane can't play in that tournament. Won the Euros.
Sadio Mane was also player of the tournament and won the AFCON, but okay.
I was going to get there. Won 2 domestic cups, scoring the winner in one of them, and almost carried a UCL tie with 3 goals. He said that the only reason that Mane is higher when he won nothing at that point was because of legacy and Prem bias. I think now, looking at the end of the season and how both players have kind of progressed in there, Chiesa getting hurt and basically being out for the season, and then Mane, like you said, being team of the tournament in AFCON, winning AFCON, being one of the best players in the league when it comes to the Premier League. I think we know who the better player is.
It's never a question. I think anyone saying that is incredibly biased already, because listen, Chiesa is a fantastic player. I've sung his praises a lot. I think he's great, and I think I'm looking forward to seeing him next year. But there's absolutely no comparison between him and Sadio Mane.
No.
And in fact, they're really different types of players as well. Chiesa is more of a creator. Mane is much more of an actual attacker. He's been playing as a center forward a few times this year. I don't think they belong in the same conversation. But Mane has comfortably outperformed Chiesa throughout his career, goal scoring wise, production wise. It's not.
So what was funny about in that whole thread? That's what people were saying, and he was like, "No, I'm not talking about in the past. I'm talking about this year. What has Mane
exclusively
done?
The last 3 months?
Exclusively." from November.
Never mind the fact
2021.
that I'm saying this before Mane has had a chance to play in his continental tournament, in which he won and was the provider for his team to win it.
It's just, I just don't get it, man. As some, I mean, it obviously, makes sense with the name of the Twitter account, but yeah, no, I completely agree.
Chiesa last year in 863 league minutes, 2 goals, 1 assist.
Listen, this is why I bring it up, because I found it.
Chiesa in the 1920 season, 2 goals, 1 assist.
Yeah, I found it scrolling through my media, and I laughed, and I was like, oh, I want to talk about this on the show again. And then thank you for bringing up more stats by just saying that he's incredibly overrated when it comes to the length of an entire season. He tends to get hurt a lot. And he only really kind of burst onto the scene because he scored a couple, important goals for Italy in the Euros before he got hurt. So, I mean,
okay, so here's Chiesa, the 1920 season, right? He has 13 goals, 9 assists, respectable numbers. Those are good numbers. Those are Berardi numbers. That's great.
Yeah.
No one's comparing Domenico Berardi to Sadio Mane.
What team was he with?
That was with Juventus.
Okay.
That was the season that he really came
over,
on.
Right?
Yeah. No, Juventus. The first Juventus season was the 2021 season, and that was how many goals and assists here? Let me pull this up. 16 goals, 12 assists in all competitions. That's also including his international games.
Respectable numbers.
Right. That's including the Euros in those figures.
Yikes.
But the Euros, I mean, he had a goal and assist in that tournament. Come on.
So 15 goals, 11 assists in the league. Or across all competitions, excuse me, because you got to count Champions League in there. But yeah, like you said, those are Berardi numbers.
Chiesa's a good player. He's not on the tier of Sadio Mane. We don't need to have a discussion to understand that, because he just isn't. That's fair enough. Arsenal 2, Leeds 1. Another game with a lot of importance on both ends of the table. Arsenal fighting for Champions League spot. They're also fighting because we made a friendly bet a few months ago about who would finish higher in the league. You said Arsenal would. I said Spurs would. Leeds doing their very best to just sink all my hopes and dreams, but not only helping Arsenal accomplish that by not helping relegate Everton, because that'd be really fucking funny. Too early in Nketiah goals, and this thing was decided. Luke Ayling gets a. Stuart Dallas was out with this game from injury. Luke Ayling with a red card early on, and that's it. You go 2-0 up and a man down. That's you're not making it back from that. But nope. I will say Leeds. They're in genuine relegation trouble now, which is concerning and frightening. I will say the one bright spot is that they didn't completely collapse in this game. They sneak a goal late in the second half, and they do apply some pressure. I think a lot of the lesser teams might have gotten beat 4 or 5-0 in this. They at least composed themselves and were able to make it manageable, not the worst game. At least helps the goal difference a little bit. So that's the one thing, is that they still seem composed and mentally in it. They're not totally defeated, but it's a huge worry now for Leeds. And for Arsenal, it's the exact opposite. If they beat Spurs on Thursday night, they'll qualify for the Champions League, which would be a huge accomplishment for them. I think if you would ask someone really optimistic about Arsenal in August, I don't know that they would have said top 4 was really in their cards. I think maybe someone really optimistic would have said it, but I think a lot of people were obviously hyping up Chelsea, Manchester United to be in the mix, Spurs to potentially be in the mix. People were talking about Leicester even, right, still. I think a lot of people were high on them still. So yeah, Arsenal, I think, they have that opportunity, and for them, of course, it'd be great to do that against Spurs on Thursday night. I'm really looking forward to that game, but I think of a lot of credit to Arsenal. I think I've been really critical of them. I still am. I don't want to make it seem like I'm throwing flowers at their feet just yet, but I still think they have a lot of work to do. I think Arteta's still been way too weak and negative in the big games, and frankly, Arsenal's still been non-competitive. I know they played really good for 22 minutes against City on New Year's Day, but outside of that,
look how that turned out.
They've been getting dog washed a lot against the top teams still. But listen, it's a good earmark for them. It's a young team that I think is frankly like on the rise, and if they get Champions League back, that's huge for them, huge for where they're going. And they took a huge step forward with that, of course.
Yeah. I saw online, Nketiah was on like a podcast or something like that, and he was saying how like, let me just get like a chance, and I'll take my chance, and I'll make sure that the fans are happy, and that I won't let the team down. And look what happened. They gave him a chance. He scored 2 goals. But I actually wanted to ask you a question, because there was another thing that came up online, and it was an interview with El Neni. And he was talking about the abuse from the supporters of the Arsenal, and how it really affects not only him, but the team as a whole, where, why are you coming out to games and, one bad pass, you're starting to verbally abuse the players, and even worse at times, racially abuse the players for, minor mistakes. And then, if something really bad happens, and we've seen this happen all the time with Granit Xhaka, right? He gets a red card, or he makes some sort of mistake, and Arsenal end up losing. The abuse from the fans is really, really, aggressive. And as a Milan fan who has seen that and seen how it has affected players as well, has Twitter fandom, and has, the rise in being able to speak your mind online and be able to directly contact the players online over all this, on top of what can be said to their face, in the stadiums, has it gotten to a point where it is becoming too much? And maybe I don't know how you can put measures in place, but do you think that fans kind of need to take a step back and realize, like, the players are people too? And
yes,
you you wouldn't want somebody saying this to your face.
Clearly, yes. Yeah, Xhaka actually, I think, did an interview in the last month or two where he talked about how, remember that game a few years ago? I don't remember who they're playing exactly, but he got subbed off and he was getting booed, and he took the jersey off and was kind of like cajoling the crowd a little bit. And he says that he remembers that the fans that were right by the touchline that were screaming and cursing at him, giving him death threats and all that. He says he sees them every time now. He sees them every game, when he walks off or when he goes to the tunnel. And how just uncomfortable that is, right? Where like there's these days where they're, they're beyond just, disappointed or angry. They're clearly, you're throwing like vehement stuff at these guys, and then the next week it's all fine. I do think there's this weird disconnect between, like, especially online, how fans treat players. I hate sports Twitter for the most part, because it just devolves into nonsense, like saying Chiesa is better than Mane or something. But like a lot of times it's like I try and interact with like football Twitter accounts, and it's always just like L ratio, Pessi better or something. Like, it's just all dumb stuff that devolves the conversation a lot. It's a lot of abuse for sure. We've seen that anytime a player has like a big mistake in a game or something, or it's a lot of disgusting, vile stuff. I think the world would be better if we stop taking social media so seriously. Stop taking the sport so seriously as well. Like, I don't know if it's actually affecting your mental health. Like, probably need to like alter your life a little bit.
I do think maybe
practice some breathing.
I do think a lot of people online tend to forget that, the players are people too. These people are not just, I don't know what I want to use the word asset, but that's not the right word.
And no, that is how people view them. People view them as assets, as solely entertainers and performers that aren't people.
They're not there to make your day happy, because their sole job is to win games of soccer. Like, of course that's what they're paid to do. But, there's a reason you are called a supporter. You're supposed to back your team. I'm not saying that you're not allowed to criticize the players and give your thoughts on how players are playing. But, there comes a line where, when you cross it, you're now negatively affecting not only the players and their performances on the field, but also the team's results. In the early 2010s to mid 2010s, Milan fans completely verbally and online, they abused their players constantly. And they were the reason that certain managers got sacked. And you could see how it affects a club, and it just sinks the club even lower than, where they're at the moment. So, I mean, supporters, take that title seriously. Support your team. Don't berate your team for, having 45 pass completion percentage in one game. Come on, grow up.
Yeah, I think that's a fair lesson for everyone. It's not that serious, Chief. Like your life
exactly.
will still go on. World keeps turning even though Arsenal lost. Arsenal lose like all the time. There's no point in getting upset about it. But yeah, I think in general, social media in general, I think is really it's allowed people to think solely like in the online space. Like these are just avatars that I'm talking to, not real people. And I think that's a lot of issues involved there beyond just even sport, right? If we're talking even just interpersonal, political, all of it. It's really devalued. I think a lot of people.
Are we getting old with this take right now?
Like, I think it's a totally reasonable take. I think a lot of people are understanding. Like I've taken a lot of step backs from social media now, where I don't interact with it as much. And one of the good things about social media, but is one of I think. It's double-sided. It's one of the bad things is that your feed is curated by what you interact with the most. That's what people, I think, fail to understand sometimes too about social media. Like whatever you're liking and looking at the most is what is going to be shown to you again. So my Twitter is mostly internet cats and soccer. That's it. Like I've made myself a nice little space where every time I open my Twitter account, it's like a niche football stat and a cat that can't spell very good. And that's, that's the kind of life that I want to live. That's the echo chamber I want to exist in.
Yes, sir.
Let's get to the other side of this game a little bit and just look at Leeds, because they have Chelsea, Brighton, and Brentford to close out their season. 2 of those are home games, Chelsea and Brighton, and their next 2 are home. I really think they might be going down because Everton have improved. They've gotten some big results. Watford already confirmed for relegation, but they're really not even close. And then Burnley are on the edge. I could see Burnley going either way. I think Leeds are in some trouble here, which worries me a lot. Chelsea's not going to be an easy game. Brighton away from home is actually very good. They've been better on the road than at home this year, despite what they made Manchester United look like at home over the weekend. But I'm a little worried about Leeds. I'd be disappointed to see them go down. They're a fun team. I think I'd like to see Jesse Marsch stay in the Premier League as well, from like an American bias kind of aspect here. But I am a little worried about Leeds now. I think they might go down. The tough thing is they have a terrible goal differential, because of some of those heavy losses they took under Bielsa. They've conceded 74 goals this year. And it's tough, too, because it's not really Jesse Marsch's fault. You look at the results since he's come in, and they've played pretty well. They've gotten some good wins. They beat Norwich, Wolves, drew with Southampton, beat Watford, drew Crystal Palace, but they've still been sucked into the relegation zone. Part of that has just been, abysmal results before then. So I personally don't really want to see them go down. I'd like to see them stay up, but it's not looking great for Leeds at the moment. The other side of the title race, City put 5 past Newcastle. Newcastle, thank you for all your help. Very nice, very cool. This is important for City, though, because it could conceivably come down to goal differential. That's certainly not out of the question with this title race. If City do have a shock defeat here and Liverpool go perfect, it could go down to that. So, obviously getting, +5 in your bracket is pretty nice. They have one hand on the title at this point, let's be honest. Brighton embarrassed United 4-0. Not much to talk about because, what more can it possibly be said about...
You are going to see the name Cristiano Ronaldo in the Europa League.
You might be seeing him in the Europa Conference League, pal, if they're not careful, because West Ham are 3 points behind with a game at hand, so... You never know. Although West Ham,
you know what? You're right.
West Ham do have to play City. So, West Ham could do us all a favor by beating Manchester City, giving me and Liverpool a nice pathway to the top of the table. That'd be very kind to them. And putting United in the Conference League. I think everyone wins in that scenario, actually. I think we can all agree that'd be the best timeline for everyone. But, there's just not much more to be said about United. everything that you can say, I think, has already been said. They're awful. They're clearly not in it anymore. I'm excited to see, how they mess up Ten Hag and how terribly this goes for them next season, because they just, I think, have an institutional problem more than anything. Mm-hmm. Everton, like we said, went away to Leicester. Leicester coming off the disappointment of failing in the semifinal of the Europa Conference League. Tough result for them. Tough result on Sunday, but really it's all down to Jordan Pickford. Again, fantastic game. A lot of great saves. A lot of opportunities that I think on any other day are probably in the back of the net. But Everton, if they stay up, they're going to have Jordan Pickford to thank for that, because he's been fantastic when they've needed him to be. And, fair play to Frank Lampard. I think he's turned the team around in a good way. They're not out of it yet, of course, but they put themselves in a much better position than where they were. It's going to be interesting to see what they do this summer, because, should they stay in the Premier League, which it seems like they're going to at this point, they still have a lot of financial difficulties. Not a team that's like completely out of the woods yet. They have to start making better signings. They have to make better squad decisions. But yeah, if they stay up, it's going to be because they beat United, Chelsea, and Leicester. And listen, that's what you have to do sometimes, right?
Mm-hmm. I saw something, and I just want to say this really fast. I saw something online, talking about Manchester United, and they can talk all they want about, the players or the managers or all this stuff, but the Glazers have for 8, 9, 10 years, they've been working off of a net profit, as opposed to a deficit, when it comes to spending money on players. And when they did spend money on players, they spent money on the most wild, single signing that didn't end up helping the team at all. And they started to have, now it's almost permanent damage that put them behind the 8 ball with a lot of these other teams. They're spending 40 million in a transfer window. City's spending 100. Liverpool's spending 80.
United have comfortably outspent most everyone. I know that the Glazers aren't good owners, but they've spent money.
They spent I think they're the most. They spent the most.
They spent it like $1 billion.
Yeah, it was like $1 billion. But how much was it on Harry Maguire? They threw like 40 million.
And the wages that they give at United. Listen, the Glazers are not good owners. Like, no doubt about it. They're not the type of owners you want in any sport, because they do nothing. They offer nothing, and they really shouldn't even own the club, because they got a leverage buyout, which is not even like totally legal either to take over a club. Very, very kind of shady stuff there. But I can't stand the United stuff about the woe is me. Maybe it's because I grew up my whole life having to listen to United fans that I don't feel like a shred of empathy or sadness for any of it. Because I can also remember Liverpool fans telling United fans like 4 or 5 years ago that they were headed down. It's hilarious. They're very much headed down the same path Liverpool were in the 90s, where you come off this era of success, and you still have that aura, definitely. I think United even still have an aura of success and prestige about them that maybe they don't deserve as much anymore, because it has been a decade since they've won a league title, right? Already. That's not a dig. It's just saying, like, you have not had the success that you think you have in a very long time already. 10 years goes by fast. So does 20, so does 30, right? But they've spent poorly, because they're a mismanaged club at the very top. And they brought in Ralph Rangnick, who we're all told is the grandfather of gegenpressing, and Jurgen Klopp and Julian Nagelsmann and Thomas Tuchel literally owe their entire careers to this man. He invented the philosophy of pressing, because he's the smartest brainchild ever, and his team's getting fucking washed by Brighton 4-0. All right. You know what? Like, I'm tired of hearing about it. I'm tired of hearing about the United circus. Because, and again, not much more can be said about them, because they're not a good team. They have a lot of divas. They're horribly mismanaged. I'm looking forward to see what they do over the summer, if they move in a positive direction at all, because Ten Hag is the type of manager that they should be getting, right? Like someone with some potential. Even then, Ten Hag isn't some like young genius. He's in his 50s. Everyone thinks Ten Hag is like this young upstart guy. The dude has been managing for a long ass time now.
He's been around.
It's not like this dude is like, again, like they're literally treating Ten Hag like he's Nagelsmann, like this like mid-30s guy that's like really on the breaking edge here. Like, this is someone new. Like, Ten Hag has literally been around for a long ass time. The dude is in his 50s. He's not young in any sense. Like, He's not one of those guys that's like he's young but he looks older because he's bald. No, he's just old. Like he's just an old dude. I don't know what to tell you. Like I don't know that Ten Hag is the exact answer if you don't fix the structural problems. And part of that is because of the ownership, and I get that, right? I don't want to make it seem like I'm blind to the Glazer mismanagement there. But they've spent a buttload, and I'm just. I had to listen all summer because they got Varane and Sancho and Ronaldo, that they were back in the title race, right? And they're nowhere near it. In fact, this is their worst Premier League season ever. After they just spent a ton over the summer, they re-signed Fernandes to big money. They spent big money on him. I had to hear about how he's the best player on earth. He should have won the Ballon d'Or. He's better than Mo Salah. All this nonsense. Tired of it. Tired of listening to it. They get what they deserve. I had to listen to it for the first 10 years of me watching the sport. I'm glad they suck. They deserve. If there's a club that deserved to be ethered and taken down a touch, it was Manchester United.
I don't have a take on this, but I saw it on Twitter and I wanted to know if you do. Did Sergio Ramos make Rafael Varane look good at Real Madrid?
I think Varane's not bad. There are certain center backs that I think. Here's the thing. The reason center backs are hard to evaluate is because any big mistake is automatically going to crucify them, right? But also, I think a key part to why center backs are good is they have to be effective communicators. And sometimes there are guys that are not effective communicators that on their own necessarily don't lead a line. And I think Varane is one of those players. He's a good center back. I think he did, and a lot of players will, right? Like a lot of players are buoyed by playing next to Virgil van Dijk because he is in that Ramos tier for me. I know that he hasn't had as long of career success as Ramos has, but he is in that tier for me of he's an elevator. Like anyone who plays next to someone like Ramos, Van Dijk, we saw it with Maldini and Nesta, right? Like you have these guys, Cannavaro, you have these top center backs, Chiellini for a long time. I'm just naming these top center backs that when guys play next to them, they played a tier above because they had an effective communicator, someone who's very smart, who read the game well, who had all the physical qualities as well to dominate as a defender. Varane has the physical qualities. I just don't know that he has all the awareness that you need, and that's no knock on him because you're talking. That is a generational trait. Ramos is a generational type of center back. And there's no shame in not being Ramos and only being Varane. I just think that the difficulty is that their midfield is easily bypassed a lot, which puts them under a lot of pressure. Varane also had some injury issues this year too, which is a little unfair. And he's playing next to Harry Maguire. What do you want from him? Harry Maguire does not inspire confidence. Whatever the opposite of an elevator is, he is a broken escalator of a defender. It makes everyone's life a little more difficult because now you have to take the stairs. You thought you were going to get a smooth ride, and it's actually a lot harder for you.
He is the broken escalator from Final Destination 3D that's taking his Manchester United teammates down with him, grinding them up and spitting them back out piece by piece.
Escalator is one of my biggest fears, actually. I hate being on escalators because I don't know if you remember this. There's a big news story when we were young about a kid that got his shoelace stuck in an escalator and it ripped off his lower part of his leg.
I do remember that because my mom used to say don't stand, step off early. So,
you know what?
Yes, I do.
Your mom was right because it scared the hell out of me. Not a fan of escalators personally. I'm not a fan of Harry Maguire, but that's
escalators. Heels.
Yeah, there you go. There's your SpongeBob millennial reference there. We did get some conclusion to the European semifinals here. Champions League final, Liverpool versus Real Madrid, a replay of the 2018 final, which is still hurts me quite a bit. Thankfully, there's no Gareth Bale to ruin my day, but there is a Karim Benzema. But that's going to be fantastic. I think this is it's a great final for neutrals. It has a lot of great storylines. Real Madrid, though, seem like they're destined to win this thing. When you look at that City game, it's one of the most insane semifinals I've seen. So that worries me a little bit as a Liverpool fan.
It's bittersweet for you, too. Because as a Liverpool fan, if Liverpool wins, you're happy, right? Your team won the Champions League. But if Liverpool lose, you win money.
Yeah, so I did a few months ago, right before the Champions League started. I did put a bet because Real Madrid were at plus 1,400 to win the Champions League. This is stupid. They're going to blow through PSG. Why is no one saying... Hey, listen, again, we're right. We're wrong about some things. We're right about some things on the show. We were on Real Madrid from the jump. This team was
We
going to
brought back the receipts on Twitter.
the voodoo magic, all of it, right? And because we spelled it out completely, this team just the dumbest shit happens for them. I remember in 2017-18, the dumbest things happened for them, the dumbest things, and they just work. It just work.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. How do you explain it? How do you explain a team that won 3 Champions League straight? You don't. You try and find as many rationalizations. It's like, how do you explain Carlo Ancelotti, the manager? You can't. He does this, and then they score. That's it. That's all he does, and it works. It works. It's like it's genuinely like someone with like high technical experience in something trying to explain like nuclear fission to me. It's like, listen, buddy, just tell me that it works and it keeps my lights on. Like, that's it. Real Madrid are just an unstoppable force, but Liverpool have been one of the best teams in Europe. It's going to be a great one. It's 2 teams, obviously, too, with like tons of European pedigree. It's crazy that up until that final, they really hadn't met much in the Champions League. Before that, there was the 14-15 season where they're in the group stage together, but it's not a pairing that's happened a lot. But Real Madrid have had the better of Liverpool for a while now. They beat them in that final. They knocked them out of the Champions League last season. And Liverpool have not had the most success against Spanish sides, so we'll see how it goes. But looking forward to that. Europa League final.
Question right before you get to that. If Liverpool wins this, how many trophies is that?
For this season?
No. Champions League trophies.
That would if Liverpool wins, it's their 7th. If Real Madrid wins,
tie.
it would be their 14th.
So you tie.
Yeah, we would tie Milan for that, which would be great.
Fair
And
play.
we'd move clear of
Fair play.
Barcelona and Bayern. So that'd be nice for me.
Nice.
Move into the next year. Liverpool, listen, for as weird as Liverpool have been, one thing they've done right a lot is the Champions League. They get to Champions League finals like nobody's business, and at an insane rate. I've been very blessed in my fandom to see them in the Champions League final a lot. 3 in the last 5 years. I tweeted it. Listen, whatever you take away from this, you don't get to see your team. Some people are lucky if they get to see their team play in a Champions League. That's it, like group stage. To see them in 3 finals in 5 years is like, you know what? Fair enough. You know that's what it's all about. Europa League final: Rangers versus Eintracht Frankfurt. Great final. Not one I think I would have picked at the start of the knockout stages, but fair enough. Both of them did a lot to get here. Rangers knocking out Leipzig, stopping us from having an all-German final. West Ham collapsed in the semifinal, really making a smooth pathway for Frankfurt to make it here. But it's going to be great. I think this is like an old school type of final for me. I really love it.
You know where I stand on this.
Is there's some weird FIFA thing involved in this?
No. There's Milan allegiances.
Oh, right. Yeah. So you're a Frankfurt man.
Jans Petter Haug is starting for Frankfurt in the final, so I'm happy about that. Well, it's actually kind of funny because his dad still tweets and follows Milan. He tweets about Milan's success all the time. So you know, I have a soft spot for the kid, and
I have a soft spot for Frankfurt from their Europa League semifinal run from a few years ago.
Yeah.
That was when they had Jovic and Haller. So
you forgot about somebody. My man Rebic was on that team as well.
Yeah, that was Rebic. That was a great front three.
He had a nasty card in FIFA. That's the only reason I remember he was on that team.
That's always circles back.
Rebic up top.
Looking forward to Europa League final, Europa Conference League final as well, Dom. Some European pedigree. Talk about Feyenoord could be the first team to win the Champions League, Europa League, and then the Conference League. Roma though. Mourinho could do the same as a manager. He'd be the first manager to do it. He would also be the first Italian team to win a European trophy since Inter Milan in 2010. Are we all about the Italian coefficient or what? I mean, come on. You know?
No, I hate Roma. I'm not doing it. Did you see my tweet quoting AS Lupo online today? He was talking something about Milan winning like the pity prize of the Scudetto or something like that. And I was like, big words for a guy who probably wasn't alive last time Roma won a league title. So
wow, dude.
2001.
Well, you know what? When they win the Conference League, Dom, who will be laughing?
See, I don't want that, but like it's probably going to happen. I mean, Tammy Abraham has been playing absolutely ridiculous, and he's got the backing of all the supporters in Rome right now, which is really impressive, you know. So, I mean, I keep saying I saw a tweet. Tammy Abraham and Tomori have been balling this year in Serie A, yet guys like DCL and Harry Maguire are chosen by Southgate over those two guys. So it's very weird because, these English players are going abroad and really putting in work. But I guess because it's not the Prem, their quality isn't as good. Makes no sense to me. But, I've got my fingers crossed that Feyenoord win this game. But I don't really see it happening.
They could. Hey, listen, anything can happen in a final, of course, as we know. Let's look ahead a little bit to the games this week and this weekend. Like we mentioned, we have the Coppa Italia final on Wednesday, Juventus versus Inter. You have to be kind of hoping for Juventus to win this, though, right? It'd have to pain you as a Milan fan to watch Inter win this, but Inter could, get the Supercoppa, the Coppa Italia, and then maybe the Scudetto.
Listen, anything to keep Inter from potentially winning multiple trophies this year.
Yeah, fair enough.
Anything. I hate that I have to say fino alla fine, but but listen, I when it comes to those two teams, I'm gonna say what Sushi said.
So are you gonna write a dissertation on how Allegri's actually a fantastic manager and that he's actually very offensive when you think about it?
He won us one Scudetto while he was here and then left. So no. He also ruined El Shaarawy's career. But that's for another time. I don't know that
he did that, but
I'm gonna talk like what Sushi's saying in my chat. Is there a way for both teams to lose? Because I hate both teams. So.
I think there's a way, but I don't know that we want to pray for that way. There is a way that I think both teams lose here, but
let's not talk about that way.
I think Inter have the momentum. They've already beaten Juventus in a cup final this year. They've been the better team this season. Unfortunately, I just think they are the favorites for this, and they've looked good in the last few weeks. But obviously too, they have to worry about the league, so that could be a factor. But certainly feels like Inter are going to get another trophy. But you never know. Even if this find a way to win. Spurs versus Arsenal on Thursday. Looking forward to that, of course, because that could very well decide the top four race. If Spurs are able to win, that would obviously really complicate things. Not really, right? It would just make things more interesting going into the final day. I think we all, as neutrals, kind of want that to happen. I think everyone likes having something going into the final day, still not being totally settled. But Arsenal have been playing very well. I'm looking forward to see. This is really the biggest game for them at this point of the season. FA Cup final this weekend. Chelsea versus Liverpool. Liverpool opportunity to get another trophy, which would be fantastic for them. And for Chelsea, a chance for getting a trophy out of what has been a pretty, in some ways, bad season. Some revenge on Liverpool as well for beating them to the League Cup. These two teams have been really tough to separate whenever they played this season. Drew both times in the league. Had to go all the way to goalkeepers on penalties in the League Cup. It could go either way for me. Chelsea have not been playing spectacularly last few weeks, but we know that they can put great performances on no matter what. And Liverpool will obviously be motivated to add to their trophy count of the season. And on Sunday, we got Milan Milan. This man really said Milan. Milan versus Atalanta. Big one, because if Milan get past this test, it's going to hard to not feel like, what? They're gonna do it. That to me, it's obviously not the actual last hurdle, but I think this is where if they beat Atalanta on Sunday,
I'd rather them win this game because they need a win and a draw to secure them the title, or Inter lose. So, but assuming the Inter wins out, they need a win and they need a draw. And I would rather them have the comfortability of being able to go into that game against Sassuolo and knowing that all they have to do is draw, right? I don't want extra pressure on them if they draw Atalanta and have to come into this last game of the season knowing they have to win, because that's when Sassuolo will get them, because Sassuolo, they've got some young players that are ballers.
But Sassuolo also wouldn't have much to play for on the final day.
Raspadori does, because he's an Inter fan and he wants to spoil Milan's season, and so same with Berardi. He always hates Milan, so they definitely would like to play party poopers on the last day of the season.
Well, it's a really big test for Milan. We'll get a lot more clarity, of course, on the title race, the relegation race when we come back next week, and we'll also know that there are two more trophy winners as well this time next week. Dom, anything to plug before we get out of here?
Yeah, if you're watching this live on Twitter or Facebook or anything like that, hop over onto my Twitch, twitch.tv/aharryape. I am going to be playing my 4th round matchup against Milan Club Miami in the Milan Club Montreal and Fondazione Milan charity tournament. I'm in the losers bracket right now, but I think if I win my next 2 games, I'll be in the final. So if I win this game, and then I win later on this week, I'll be in the final. So, show up, show support for your boy. If you're listening to this later, after we post it and the game's done, hopefully I won my game so you can tune in and watch the rest. If not, just follow my Twitch anyway, because I play a lot of FIFA, I talk a lot of soccer, and I'm starting to venture out into other games right now. Fortnite has been one of my second favorite games to play right now. So, tune in, say what's up in the chat, and we'll have a good time.
Yeah. Before we get out of here, just gotta give a shout out to our sponsor as well. This episode of Top Ends was brought to you by Beano Board. Beano is the next big tabletop game for your man cave / she shed. You should think about this game like paper football meets foosball, and you've got Beano. Beano Board is a game and lifestyle brand based in Phoenix, Arizona. Beano's goal is to provide the highest quality boards and a true brand experience. Every part of our boards have been tested time and time again for the best possible playability, so that every Flicker's experience is a positive one. That's my favorite sentence ever. You can bring the world together with Beano and hear someone's story from the other side of the pitch. Go to beanoboard.com and use our code BEANOUSP for 10% off your order. That is BINHOUSP for 10% off your order, including the newly launched Team USA World Cup board and merch. I know they've been having some supply issues because people have been selling out a lot of this stuff, but you should get on it if it's reloaded by now. So you can use our code BEANOUSP for 10% off your order at beanoboard.com. Shout out to them. Shout out to everyone listening. We'll be back next week breaking down the games. Until then, hope you enjoy them all. Hope you have a great week. We'll talk to you next time.